Somail stepped cautiously over a twisted piece of metal that jutted from the ground like a broken spine. All around him, the world was a sea of gray and black. The sky burned a dull orange, tinted by dust and ash from the dying star overhead. He could feel the heat on his skin, even through his thin, torn clothing. His people, the Berlin, were exiles now, refugees of a war that had taken everything from them. The colony they once called home lay in ruins beyond the horizon, and there seemed to be no promise of shelter, no hope of food, and no end to their wandering. Behind Somail, a long line of other Berlin moved slowly over the cracked ground. Some stumbled on weak legs. Others shuffled with their heads bowed, eyes vacant and tired. In the front of the line, an older Berlin woman hobbled with the help of a crude wooden staff. Her once elegant robes were now nothing more than rags that barely covered her frame. She coughed once, a dry rattling sound that echoed in the silent wasteland. Each time she fell, her neighbors offered a hand, helping her to her feet again. No one spoke. They had no words of comfort left. Their voices, when they came, were soft and broken. Somail's own clothes were thin and dirty. His tunic had been ripped by sharp metal long ago, leaving his shoulders exposed to the harsh wind. He carried a small satchel slung across his back. Inside, he kept a few scraps of dried food and a half-empty water skin. Already, many in the group had no water left. Somail watched as a young Berlin boy, no older than 10 cycles, pulled at the satchel's straps, hope in his dark eyes. Somail gave him a small pouch of dried root. They had shared what they could. The boy accepted it with trembling hands and ate the roots in hungry silence. Above them, the sky grew darker as the dying star's light dimmed. Its final days were nearly over, and soon the world would be swallowed by cold. Every Berlin in the group felt a growing fear in their hearts. If they did not find shelter very soon, they would freeze in the coming night. Children clung to their parents' arms, and older Berlin whispered prayers to the gods they barely remembered. No one spoke of their former lives. None had energy for memories anymore. Memories only reminded them of what they had lost. They walked for hours through fields of jagged metal and broken stone. Everywhere they looked, they saw shards of what had been a great city. Here, a collapsed spire of alloy. There, a shattered transport vessel half buried in debris. The air smelled of smoke and rust. Somail remembered stories his grandmother had told him of green forests and clear rivers, tales from a time before the war. Now, only dust and ruin remained. He pressed his hand to his chest, where his heartbeat felt weak and slow. Hunger gnawed at him, and a dull ache settled in his bones. He pressed on, his mind focused on one thought: keep moving. To stop was to surrender. As the day wore on, the wind blew harder, carrying ash that stung their eyes. Somail wiped at his face with the back of his sleeve. Each breath was laborious. Some refugees collapsed from exhaustion, and others helped them up. A father lowered his young daughter to the ground, letting her rest against his knee. She stared at him with hollow eyes. He whispered something in her ear that Somail could not hear, perhaps a lullaby from ages past. Somail looked away, swallowing a lump of sorrow. Then, in the distance, something changed. A faint glow appeared beyond the jagged horizon. At first, it seemed like a trick of the light from the dying sun, but as they drew nearer, it became clear. A single, tall doorway framed by columns of smooth, pale metal stood alone amidst the wreckage. Around it, the ash on the ground was swept clear, as if someone had maintained this small patch of earth. From beyond the portal, warm light spilled onto the gray world. It looked like a pool of hope in an ocean of despair. Somail stopped walking. His heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the door. It stood slightly ajar, revealing only darkness beyond its threshold. The warm light came from fixtures he could not see. He felt a mixture of fear and longing, fear of what lay behind that door, longing for relief from hunger and cold. He glanced back at his people. Some shielded their eyes against the glare. Others stared in disbelief as if afraid the doorway was a gift from the gods. A few, however, whispered among themselves, wondering if this could be a trap. After all, Berlin legends warned that humans were not to be trusted. Somail took a deep breath. He covered his mouth with his wrist to stifle a coughing fit. When he looked up again, the boy who had eaten the dried roots stood beside him, shivering. His small body trembled and tears ran down his dusty cheeks. Somail reached out, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. He whispered, "It may be our only chance." The boy nodded, too weak to speak. Together, they took a step forward. Behind them, the crowd of refugees hesitated. Some took a few steps forward, while others held back, unsure whether to risk whatever lay behind that bright portal. The old Berylin woman, using her staff, tapped the ground tentatively. Her eyes, once filled with ancient wisdom, now glimmered with fear and hope. She asked softly, "Is it safe?" Somail had no answer, but somewhere deep inside, he felt a pull, an instinct that told him to trust the light. He would lead his people if they followed. If it was a trap, he would face the danger himself. With a deep exhale, Somail stepped toward the doorway. The metal floor beneath him was clean, without even a single speck of ash. He felt warmth flowing through his bare feet, and his lungs filled with fresh air that smelled faintly of flowers he had never seen. He turned back briefly, and with a nod quietly invited the others to follow. One by one, the refugees moved toward the door, leaving behind the scorched world under the dying star. As the last of the Berylin children stepped onto the polished threshold, the door closed gently, behind them. In that moment, the glow disappeared from the ruined field. The gray world, with its broken spires and ash, lay silent once more. But inside there was only light and warmth, and a small spark of hope that had not existed for many long cycles. Somail and the other refugees stepped through the tall metal doorway and into a place that felt like another world. The first thing they noticed was heat, warmth that filled their chilled bodies and made them gasp. The floor under their feet was smooth and clean, with no ash or dirt. The walls were pale and softly lit, glowing with a gentle white light. The air smelled fresh, like cool water and faint flowers, not like smoke and rust. As the Berylin children shuffled in, some covered their eyes against the bright light. Others peeked around, mouths open in surprise. Standing a few meters from the door was a human woman wearing a simple uniform. Her hair was tied back neatly, and she held a small metal cup in her hand. When she saw the ragged group, she did not look afraid. Instead, her eyes were warm and patient. She took a careful step forward and spoke in a gentle voice. Though her words were in a language the Berylin had heard only in legends, a young Berylin, man called Dion, who understood a little common speech, told them, she said, "Welcome. You are safe here." Some refugees sank to their knees and bowed their heads. Others stared at the woman, hesitant to trust their eyes. Children who had not eaten in cycles clutched at their thin robes, too weak to cry or move. One frail woman leaned on her staff and wept a low, grateful sound. The human, whom Dayan whispered was named Captain Elena, stepped forward and offered water to those nearest her. A boy of 10, whose name was Eshal, took the cup with trembling fingers. As he drank, tears slid down his dusty face. The clean water soothed him, and for the first time since they left their ruined colony, he felt relief in his throat. Behind the captain, more humans appeared in the corridor. They wore uniforms like Elena's, each bearing a simple emblem of a shining star. The humans were not armed with weapons, only small tools clipped to their belts. They moved calmly, helping Berylin, who wavered on weak legs. One human knelt to brace a collapsing elder, wrapping a blanket around him from a stack laid on a nearby bench. Another carried a soft cushion for a small Berylin child who could not stand. No one shouted orders. Instead, gentle whispers flowed in hundreds of tongues as humans spoke quietly to each Berylin, asking if they needed help. Somail felt the warmth of the floor through his bare feet and lifted his gaze. He saw that the corridor opened into a large hall filled with plants growing in tall glass tubes. Soft green leaves reached up toward the lights, and little red fruits the size of Berylin berries dangled from vines. The humans called this space the hydroponic bay. Rows of vegetables and herbs stood side by side, as neat as a spring garden. No ash drifted here. Above the plants, small vents let out fresh air. It smelled sweet, like rain on sun-warmed soil. Gunnar, one of the Barrelin scouts, knelt by a tube and pressed a finger against a leaf, marveling at its cool, smooth surface. Captain Elena motioned for the refugees to move forward and led them into another chamber. This new room had high ceilings and several low tables, each set with bowls of warm broth and a spread of soft bread. At first, the sight made some Barrelin freeze. They remembered times when food had been poisoned or taken from them. But hunger drove them closer. They sat on benches watching the humans fill bowls with broth and pour cups of clean water. Somael sat next to Ishal, the young boy who had drunk first. Somael tore a small piece of bread and dipped it into broth. As he swallowed the warm food, he felt his stomach ease its aching clench for the first time in many hours. While Somael ate, Captain Elena stood nearby, watching with careful eyes. She wore a calm expression as she noticed the refugees' caution. When a Barrelin elder named Orin tasted the broth and his face softened, Elena gave a brief nod and spoke, softly. "Rest now. Eat until you are full. We will help you. No one here will harm you." The elder closed his eyes, his thin lips curving into a small relief smile, and returned to his bowl. Around the table, Barrelin quietly accepted what was offered. Some looked at their neighbors with shy gratitude. Others simply ate in silence, as if they were too tired to thank anyone. After the meal, Elena guided the group to a long corridor, lined with small chambers. Each chamber had a bed made of soft material that looked like warm moss. Blankets and pillows were stacked at the foot of each bed. The walls glowed softly, and small vents kept the air at a pleasant warmth. One by one, the refugees lay down. Children curled on the beds, drifting off as their eyelids grew heavy. Somael laid Eshel gently on a bed before standing in the doorway to look back at the group. The scene was quiet. Humans standing at the far end, offering blankets and water, and Barrelin closing their eyes, letting their bodies rest for the first time since their long journey began. Elena returned to where Somael waited. She introduced herself more fully. "I am Captain Elena Marquez of the Humanitarian Fleet. We are explorers and aid workers. When we saw your world signal drop, we came to help any survivors." Somael listened, remembering old tales that said humans only came as conquerors. Yet here was a human who spoke kindly, gave food freely, and healed wounds. Elena showed him a small medkit and tended to Eshel's bruised arm, offering a gentle smile. "Your people may rest here as long as you need," she said. Though many refugees slept, some elders clustered in a corner of the corridor. They whispered, among themselves in low voices. One elder, Nira, shook her head and whispered, "Humans took our water once. They claimed it was for trade but kept the wells locked." Another elder, Balar, answered quietly, "Perhaps those days are gone. This human looks different. It is our loss that we cannot trust easily." They argued softly, their words heavy with memory and sorrow. Somael stepped closer, noticing the fear in their eyes. He understood why they felt this way. Mistrust had kept them safe for generations. Yet something about Elena felt true. In the soft hallway light, Somael let his shoulders relax slightly. He had not felt peace like this in many moons. He saw Barrelin children breathing quietly, faces free of hunger's shadow. He saw humans moving among them as friends, not foes. He closed his eyes and took a steady breath, feeling something he had not dared feel: hope. Behind him, the elders continued to whisper, but for the moment Somael chose to listen to Elena's calm words instead. "Rest now, and tomorrow we will speak more. There is much to learn about each other." As the soft hum of life support systems filled the corridor, Somael realized that their journey was only beginning, and that inside these walls, they might finally find more than shelter. They might find a home. Somael woke to soft light and the smell of warm bread. For a moment he forgot where he was. The bed under him was soft and clean, and the air was fresh, not dry and choking with ash. He opened his eyes slowly and sat up. Around him, other Barrelins still slept peacefully, wrapped in soft blankets. The room was quiet except for a low humming sound, like a distant river. For the first time in many cycles, Somael felt rested. He stood and walked into the hallway. A few humans were already awake. One of them, a tall man with short dark hair, nodded at Somael and offered a warm smile. "Good morning," the human said. Somael nodded back, not sure what the words meant, but he understood the kindness in the man's tone. Further down the corridor, he saw Captain Elena speaking to two Berylin elders. They were sitting at a table with cups of warm liquid in front of them. Their eyes were tired, but calmer than the night before. Soon, more Berylin woke and joined the others in the main hall. Elena and her team had set out bowls of porridge and fruit. The children ran to the table, their stomachs growling with hunger. A few still hesitated, watching the humans with caution, but hunger won in the end. Somael took his bowl and sat beside a young girl who smiled up at him shyly. He gave her a piece of fruit, and she giggled softly, her first laugh in many days. After breakfast, Elena stood in front of the group. She raised a small device that translated her words into Berylin speech. "I want to thank you all for your trust," she said. "This place is safe. We call it a sanctuary. It was built to help those in need. You are not prisoners here. You may stay as long as you want." Murmurs spread through the group. Some were confused, others still unsure. A few elders looked at one another with doubtful expressions, but most Berylin looked at Elena with a mixture of curiosity and hope. "I would like to ask for your help," Elena continued. "There is much to do here. If you wish, you can assist in caring for the plants, preparing food, or learning about our technology. In return, we will give you full access to food, shelter, and care." Somael stood and spoke, his voice clear. "I will help. My people are tired of running. We wish to stand again, not just survive." A few others nodded. An old hunter named Yaren offered to teach young Berylin how to build shelter using both old ways and new tools. A mother with twin daughters said she would assist with cooking and cleaning. Little by little, the sanctuary began to fill with life. That day, Somael joined a group of Berylin and humans in the hydroponic garden. Elena explained how the plants grew in water with special nutrients instead of soil. Somael had never seen such a system before. A human named James showed him how to check water levels and remove dead leaves. Somael listened carefully and worked, with steady hands. At first, there was silence between the two groups. Humans did not know much about Berylin ways, and Berylin still carried the old fear of betrayal. But as they worked together, small conversations began. James asked Somael about the old Berylin forests, and Somael told him stories of trees so tall they touched the sky. James smiled and said he hoped to see such trees one day. Later, a group of Berylin children were shown a learning room filled with colorful lights and soft music. Elena invited them to play with small blocks that glowed when touched. At first, they stared in confusion. But then one child placed a block on top of another, and the whole stack lit up in bright colors. The children laughed, their fear forgotten, for a moment. That night, the sanctuary was quieter. Not silent with fear, but peaceful with rest. The rooms glowed gently, and the air was warm. Somael sat with Elena in the main hall. She showed him a star map on a screen. "There are many worlds out there," she said. "Some are still broken. Some need help. We cannot fix everything, but we try. Humanity has learned that kindness is stronger than war." Somael nodded slowly. "We were told that humans take what they want," he said. "But you give without asking anything." Elena looked at him, her eyes calm. "We've made mistakes. But now we choose a different path. And if you walk with us, we walk together." Somael looked around the room. His people were smiling, sleeping, laughing. The air was no longer heavy with despair. The sanctuary was not just a place of safety. It was a place of healing. In his heart, Somael felt the cold shadow of fear begin to melt. They had walked through ashes and pain. Now, for the first time, they had stepped into light. The door that once seemed strange and uncertain had led to something real. The days inside the sanctuary passed with quiet peace. The Berylin, once filled with fear and hunger, were slowly changing. Their bodies grew stronger with good food. Their minds began to rest. Children played again, and the elders spoke of old songs they had not sung in many years. Somael worked in the hydroponic garden every morning. He had learned how to check water levels, trim dead leaves, and even plant new seeds. The human named James worked beside him. Though their languages were different, they had found ways to understand each other through hand signs, drawings, and smiles. One day, as they cleaned the roots of a tall green plant, James turned to Somael and said, "You are a fast learner." He gave a thumbs up and Somael smiled back. "Your garden is strong," Somael said in his careful common speech. "We are growing together." The sanctuary felt like a new home, but the past was still close. Some of the older Barrelin still did not trust the humans fully. They remembered stories of war, of broken promises and lost families. Elder Nira, who always sat near the hall's warm light, often said, "Humans change their words like the wind. Be careful, young ones." Somael understood her fear. But each day the humans showed kindness. No weapons, no orders, only help and soft voices. Captain Elena was always moving through the halls, checking on both her team and the Barrelin. She never raised her voice, and she always listened. One evening, Elena invited Somael and a few others to the archive room. It was a quiet place filled with glowing screens and old data chips. She showed them images from Earth, blue oceans, green forests, and tall white buildings. Somael stared in wonder. "Is this your world?" he asked. Elena nodded. "Yes. Earth, our home. But parts of it were lost. Great storms, rising heat. We had to leave. Like you, we searched for new places to live." The Barrelin sat in silence. They had always believed they were the only ones who had lost their home. Now they saw that even the humans had known pain. Elena shared a picture of her family, parents and a younger brother, smiling under a tree. "They are gone now," she said quietly, "but their memory gives me strength." Somael looked at the others. He saw the same thought in their eyes. These humans were not just helpers. They were survivors too. The next day, Elena came with a new idea. "I would like to ask your people to help in other ways," she said. "We are few. The sanctuary runs better with many hands." Somael agreed, and soon Barrelin began helping in the kitchens, cleaning the air vents, and even learning simple repair work. A young Barrelin girl named Leia was taught how to use a touchscreen to monitor water flow. She picked it up quickly and smiled every time the screen lit up in green. The humans were patient teachers. They showed the Barrelin how to use their tools without making them feel small. They listened when the Barrelin shared old ways too. How to use certain plants for healing, how to track stars without machines. Trust was not built in one day, but it grew like the plants in the hydroponic garden, slowly, gently, with care. One morning, a Barrelin scout ran into the sanctuary breathless. "Ships," he said. "From the sky. Not human, not friendly." Elena rushed to the control room. On the screen she saw them. Dark pirate vessels from the Arukian sector, known for raiding small colonies. They had picked up the sanctuary's energy signal and were now flying toward it. Fast. Panic spread through the sanctuary. Some Barrelin froze in fear. Others began to pack bags, ready to flee. Elder Nira said, "We must go. The pirates will kill us all." But Elena stood firm. "We can defend this place if we work together." She turned to the Barrelin hunters. "You know the land. You can help us hide the sanctuary's signal and build traps if they land." Somael stepped forward. "We will help. We do not run anymore." In the hours that followed, humans and Barrelin worked side by side. They set up shields to block energy scans. They used old Barrelin techniques to create smoke covers from natural powders. Scouts hid outside, ready to send alerts. In the quiet, before the storm, Somael stood on the roof beside Elena. "You opened your door to us," he said. "Now we stand with you." Elena nodded. "We are stronger together." As the sky darkened with the pirate ship's arrival, no one in the sanctuary felt alone. They had come from different worlds, different stories, but now they stood united, not just to fight but to protect the place that had become a home to them all. The sky turned dark. Thick clouds covered the weak sun, and the wind carried the sound of distant engines. The pirate ships were coming. From the top of the sanctuary, Captain Elena looked through her binoculars. In the distance, small black dots moved through the sky, growing larger every minute. The Arukian raiders had found them. Inside the sanctuary, fear spread like fire. The Berylin refugees had known danger before, but this was different. They had finally found a safe place, a warm bed, and food. Now, it could all be destroyed. Elena called a meeting in the central hall. The room was quiet, but heavy with worry. The Berylin and humans sat side by side, waiting to hear what she would say. "We don't have a large army," Elena said, her voice calm but firm, "but we have strong minds and brave hearts. If we work together, we can protect this place." Some of the Berylin elders looked unsure. "They have weapons," Elder Nira said. "We have only tools and a few shields." "But we have each other," Somael replied. "This is our home now, we can't just run again." Elena nodded. "He's right. We have one day before they arrive. We'll use that time well." Plans began at once. The humans showed the Berylin how to use basic defense systems, shields, alarms, and light pulse barriers. The Berylin, in return, taught the humans how to hide traps in the ground and how to move silently across rocky land. In the control room, Elena and her team worked to jam the pirates' signals. They created false readings to make the sanctuary look smaller and less important. "If they think this place is just an empty base, they may not send their full force," said James, tapping quickly on the screen. Outside, Somael led a group of young Berylin scouts. They carried smoke bombs made from dried plants and sharp spikes carved from scrap metal. They set up traps along the canyon paths, hiding them under dust and rock. Little Eshal, the young boy who once cried from hunger, now helped pass supplies and messages. He ran back and forth between teams, his steps light and fast. Even the smallest hands could help. By evening, the sanctuary looked quiet from above, but below the surface, every person was ready. That night, there was no sleep. The sky was filled with stars, and under them, the defenders waited. Then, just before dawn, the pirate ships came. They dropped from the clouds like birds of prey. 3 dark vessels, their wings wide and sharp, flew low toward the sanctuary. The ground shook as they landed near the outer hills. The pirates came fast, dressed in dark suits and masks. They moved in groups, holding weapons that glowed with red light. But the defenders were ready. As the first pirate team stepped onto the rocky ground, a smoke bomb exploded. Thick white fog surrounded them. They coughed and shouted, unable to see. From the side, Berylin scouts threw nets and stones, catching them by surprise. One group of pirates tried to climb a hill, but their feet triggered a hidden trap. The ground opened and they fell into a pit covered with soft nets that wrapped around them tightly. Inside the sanctuary, alarms rang. Elena stood by the gate with a shield team. When a pirate reached the outer wall and fired, the barrier flared with light but held strong. "Hold your line," Elena shouted. Her voice was steady. The humans behind her responded with calm focus. Somael and his team came from behind the rocks and attacked the last pirate group from the side. He used a long metal staff, striking with careful aim. The Berylin moved like shadows, fast and silent. For hours, the battle went on. Pirates tried to break into the sanctuary, but the defenders stopped them again and again. The traps, the teamwork, and the courage of both Berylin and humans made the difference. Finally, as the sun rose higher, the last pirate ship lifted off. It flew away, broken and smoking. The raiders had failed. They had met a people who would not run, a home that would not fall. Silence followed. Then came cheers. Inside the sanctuary, people hugged each other. Some cried, others laughed. Children danced in the hallways. For the first time, they had protected something together. Elena stood with Somael on the sanctuary roof. watching the sky return to peace. "You were brave," she said. Somail shook his head. "We all were, because you gave us a reason." The sanctuary had survived. But more than that, something stronger had been born. Trust. Not just between one Barrelin and one human, but between two peoples who had once feared each other. Now they stood side by side, not as strangers but as defenders of the same home. And for the first time both Barrelin and humans knew. This sanctuary was no longer just a shelter. It was a beginning. The sun rose slowly over the rocky hills, casting a golden light across the land. Smoke from the battle still floated in the air, thin and gray. The ground was marked by footprints, broken gear, and burnt dust. But inside the sanctuary there was peace. The pirates were gone. The people had won. Somail stood near the main gate, with Captain Elena. Both were tired. Their faces showed it, but there was a calm strength in their eyes. Behind them, Barrelin children helped clean up the halls. Human engineers worked on repairing the outer walls. There were scratches and cracks, but the structure was strong. "We made it," Somail said quietly. Elena nodded. "Yes. Because we stood together." Many Barrelin had doubted at first. They feared humans. They feared betrayal. But after the battle, that fear began to fade. The humans had not left them. They had fought beside them. Some had been hurt. Others had risked their lives, all to protect the sanctuary and the Barrelin. In the medical bay, a human nurse wrapped a bandage around Yaren's arm. The old Barrelin hunter had taken a cut during the fight. He winced slightly but said nothing. The nurse smiled kindly. "You were brave," she said. Yaren looked at her with quiet respect. "So were you," he replied. Ashal, the young Barrelin boy, sat with two human children in the garden room. They shared a small box of sweets. The human girl, Mira, offered him a piece. Ishal took it with a wide smile. "Is it always this sweet?" he asked. Mira laughed. "Always." In the main hall, Elena called a meeting. The humans and Barrelin gathered together, no longer sitting apart. This time, they sat close, side by side. "I want to thank you all," Elena began. "What we did yesterday, I was more than a fight. It was a promise. We stood for something good. We defended our home." Somail stood and spoke next. "We were afraid when we came. We had lost everything, our homes, our food, even our hope. But when we stepped through that door, you gave us more than shelter. You gave us a second chance." The room was quiet. Every word was felt deeply. Elder Nira stood up slowly. Her voice was soft, but clear. "I once said humans could not be trusted, that they would turn on us. I was wrong." She turned to Elena and bowed her head. "You have shown us something new, something true." From that day, things began to change even more. The humans and Barrelin began to live, not just side by side, but as one community. They shared meals. They taught each other songs. They told stories around evening lights. The children ran through the halls without fear. Captain Elena made sure the Barrelin had a voice in every decision. A new council was formed, half human, half Barrelin. Somail was chosen to speak for his people. Elena remained the guide for the humans, but now she had many helping hands. Together, they planned new gardens and better water systems. The Barrelin taught the humans how to grow certain desert herbs. In return, the humans shared knowledge about solar panels and repair tools. It was a fair trade, built on respect. One day, while checking the outer sensors, a Barrelin scout spotted something on the horizon. A ship, not a pirate ship, but an old Barrelin vessel. It was damaged, but it carried life. When the ship landed, the people rushed to the gates. Out stepped more Barrelin, lost families, tired travelers, people who had been searching for safety for many moons. They looked weak, dirty, and scared, just like Somail and the others had looked when they first arrived. Somael stepped forward, his heart full. He looked at Elena. She smiled and nodded. "Open the door," Somael said. "Let them in." The new refugees were welcomed with open arms. They were fed, clothed, and given places to sleep. When they asked, "Is this place truly safe?" Somael answered with pride, "Yes. It is our home now, and it can be yours too." That night, as the stars filled the sky, music played softly in the sanctuary. A group of humans and Barrelin sat around a small fire, telling stories. One child asked, "Will the pirates come back?" Elena looked at the child and smiled gently. "Maybe. But if they do, they will find us ready. Not just with walls and shields, but with each other." Somael added, "We are not weak anymore. We are not alone. We are many hearts beating together." And with that, the sanctuary became more than a place of safety. It became a symbol of hope, a light in the darkness. For those who had nothing, it was now a place of peace. For those who had feared, it was now a place of trust. And for those still out in the wastelands, it would one day be a place where a door would open and someone would say, "Stay forever inside." The days passed quietly after the battle. The sky was clearer now. The ash storms had stopped and the wind no longer carried the smell of burning. Inside the sanctuary, life began to feel normal, not just for the humans, but for the Barrelin, too. Somael walked through the garden room early in the morning. He touched the leaves of the tall green plants and smiled. They were healthy, strong, just like the people who now lived here. In one corner, Barrelin children laughed as they watered the plants with small cups. A human engineer named Leon showed them how to check water levels on a screen. The walls of the sanctuary had been repaired. The burn marks and cracks from the pirate attack were gone. Fresh paint and new lights made the place look new again. But it wasn't just the walls that had changed. The people inside had changed even more. The Barrelin and the humans now worked as one team. They shared food, tools, and time. They built new rooms together. The sound of hammers and laughter filled the halls. The kitchen smelled of both Barrelin root stew and Earth-style bread. It was a strange mix, but a good one. Captain Elena walked beside Somael as they inspected a new learning room being set up for the children. The walls were covered with simple pictures, trees, stars, and smiling faces. Books and data screens were arranged neatly on shelves. "We will teach them both our ways," Elena said. "The old stories and the new skills." Somael nodded. "They will grow stronger than us. They will carry both our worlds in their hearts." Later that day, an alarm beeped gently in the control room. A human officer named Darnell checked the UE screen. "A ship," he said. "It's Barrelin. Old code. Not a threat." Everyone moved quickly to prepare for new arrivals. Food was cooked. Clean beds were made. Water and blankets were placed near the gates. When the ship landed, a large door opened slowly. Dozens of Barrelin stepped out. Their eyes were tired and their clothes were dusty. Some carried small children in their arms. Others leaned on walking sticks. Their faces were filled with fear and confusion. Somael stepped forward, dressed in clean clothes, his face calm and kind. He looked into the eyes of a tall Barrelin woman holding a baby. She looked scared and unsure. "Who are you?" she asked. Somael gave a gentle smile. "I was like you once, lost, tired, and cold. But a door opened for me. A human stood behind it and said, 'Stay forever inside.' And I did." He looked back at Elena, who nodded. Together they opened the sanctuary gates wide. The new refugees entered slowly, their eyes wide as they saw the clean halls, the warm lights, and the friendly faces. The children smiled when they were handed warm soup. One small boy sat down and began to eat with both hands. His mother began to cry softly. A human knelt beside her and gave her a soft cloth to wipe her tears. Elena stood before the crowd, Her voice was steady. This is your home now. No one will hurt you here. No one will turn you away. That night, the sanctuary was full of quiet joy. People sang soft songs in two languages, Earth's old tongue and the Barrelin's singing voice. The sounds blended like rivers joining. Around small lights, people shared stories of where they had come from and dreams of where they might go next. Elder Nira stood by a window, watching the stars. Somael came to stand beside her. "Do you still believe humans cannot be trusted?" he asked with a soft smile. She chuckled. "They are strange," she said. "They eat odd food and talk too fast. But they also care. They protect. And most of all, they listen." Somael nodded. "That is enough." As more days passed, the sanctuary became known among distant refugee groups. Word spread of a place where people were treated with kindness, where food was shared and no one was forced to leave. More ships came. More lives were saved. More hearts began to heal. Elena and Somael led together, never as rulers, but as guides. Decisions were made by the council where every voice mattered. A flag was made and placed above the sanctuary gates. It had a star and a leaf side by side, a sign of peace, a symbol of unity. And so, from the dust of broken worlds, something new had risen. A place built not by power, but by compassion. Not by machines, but by hands joined together. Not by fear, but by trust. This was no longer just a shelter. It was a home.